welcome you all, first of all, to this webinar with Nur from ServiceNow, who was so kind to join us yet again after you've already joined us in Ghent last week for our own conference. Um, I'll quickly cover the agenda of today. I'll start with a very brief introduction, after which we'll immediately dive into the customer presentation led by Nur about ServiceNow's AI native blueprint. I want to leave ample time for Q&A. I know in the world of skills, tasks, work intelligence, there's a lot of curious souls. So we want to leave enough time for Q&A, which you can drop in the Q&A section. And I have enough colleagues here in the call, JD and Mac, but also Anne-Sophie and Clément, who are here to monitor the chat and make sure that we answer all your questions. And then closing, just providing a summary and talk a little bit about what's next. So I just want to start introducing myself. I'm Julius. I lead our customer community at TechWolf. It's my job to bring stories like the one we're covering today to all of you, so that we don't learn in isolation within our organizations, but can pick the brains of others. And increasingly, there's more and more companies experimenting with the data to drive workforce transformation in this age of AI. So it's a super interesting space to be able to drive forward. Talking about learning, like you might have seen very recently last week, that there's been research published about what happens when AI enters the org chart. This is very much a topic we're going to cover today in this customer example. But we see in like the research in the Harvard Business Review, published by, among others, Julie Better from BCG, that there's interesting things going on when AI enters the org chart, in terms of management, in terms of HR, in terms of the way leadership is changing. And in that world, like TechWolf, our mission is really to make sure that every person flourishes at work, even though work is changing a lot. We've been doing this since 2018. We're supported by a couple of investors, among which some of the platforms you recognize, Workday, ServiceNow, SAP. And of course, we get support from these investors to serve our customers. One of the logos in this overview you'll hear from today. What does TechWolf do for the people who don't know? In essence, we connect three data sets that never live together. And what do I mean by that? It's skills intelligence, work intelligence, market intelligence. Three questions that are essential in the AI era of work today, especially when you want to build a data layer of trust. So it's about what skills do we have and need, what work do we do, and how does AI impact it, and then what's happening around us with competitors and in the market in general. This all is inferred by TechWolf, and we hand it to the organizations we work with. And that's in essence all we do. Like we're a very focused vendor. We focus on data and data first. Where it lives in a platform or in dashboards, there's enough other systems that do that, which is why we also feed to those systems to make sure the data lives there, whether it's enterprise or whether it's agents. Some examples you see in the visual here. And this is all really important when we want the CTRO to become the AI transformation lead. And we see a couple of examples, among which ServiceNow, of course. CTROs are really stepping up here, but they can't do so with just systems. It's important to do so with the right data. So that's it for me in terms of a brief intro, in case you didn't know about what we do here. But I'll, of course, hand over in a minute to Nur to introduce herself, and then to talk a little bit about how this is coming to life in ServiceNow as an organization and as a TechWolf customer. Quick thing about the chat yet again, feel free to say hi, and then feel free to use Q&A to put your questions throughout the session. And we have dedicated time to cover it, some of them in a voiceover as well, after the session. And then JD and Mac are here to represent and to help. So Noor, I'll give the screen to you, and then we can kick off.
Thanks, Julius. Let me share my screen to get started. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I am Nur Duygun. I lead Skills Center of Excellence and Skills Intelligence at ServiceNow. And I'm actually excited to be here as a TechWolf customer. As Julie said, we're also an investor within TechWolf. ServiceNow is a software company building AI platform for business reinvention, and we orchestrate and automate work across the enterprise. And we're headquartered in Santa Clara, California, with 30,000 employees located globally. And out of those 30,000, half of it is engineering and product, and the other half is go-to-market, like name and sales. Um, just want to kind of tell you about our skills journey and kind of where we are and where we're heading and kind of how we're looking at the kind of problem at hand, like, today and for future. So today is actually about one fundamental question. How do we move from intuition-based talent intelligence to talent decisions to intelligence-driven ones so we can actually measure readiness for what is next? And it's exactly why we partner with TechWolf to help us build decision-grade skills intelligence that our leaders can act on. I just want to start with one uncomfortable truth. I think we talk about this in different ways, within our company, but we've been looking at skills the wrong way for the last 2 decades. So I know it's a bold statement, but again, the way that we treated skills and how we measured them, how we've been acting on them is wrong because we're treating them like artifacts, some like static, data point, a resume or certification from 3 years ago, or a self-assessment that nobody updates ever because it's, again, nobody has time to do that. That's not really intelligence in our minds, and it's fossil record. So that's kind of how we call it. And skills need to be treated like signals, living data about capability we have right now. So which brings us to the question that not every leader can answer with confidence these days. And do you know if your organization is ready for what is next? Not in theory, not on paper, but ready right now with the people you have, the capabilities that they carry, and then the gaps between them today and where the business is going. This is the question our leaders were asking as we were transforming to become an AI native company. And most organizations answer this with instinct, with assumption, and with hope, without any evidence per se. So our goal is to replace that with measurable readiness and not aspirational one. And that's kind of where we are at as an organization today. And so let me tell you what we're actually measuring when we say readiness. So for us, the readiness isn't a single number, it's the connection across multiple layers. So it starts at the top, like where is the business going? What is the strategy? And what are we delivering? What is the product or service that we're delivering? And how does work get done? It's not about the org chart or the job architecture per se. It's the actual work, and how is AI disrupting that work? Which tasks are changing? What is being eliminated? What is being created? And given all of that, what are the capabilities are required to deliver, right? Then looking at who do we have, kind of the supply, and then what do we need, the demand side of the equation. And we feel like kind of based on our conversation, most of organizations look at one or two of these layers, but readiness is a system, and the TechWolf skills intelligence is a critical piece that connects, input to capability layers. So we can make real workforce decisions. So now I just want to kind of bridge from like definition to how we actually do this. So for us, the bridge is the intelligence layer, and intelligence layer turns strategy into analysis, analysis into decisions. Without it, actual readiness stays in theory. And here's what the intelligence looks like as a foundation. At ServiceNow, we call this talent signature. It's a living, unified profile of capability signals. So it's a single source of truth. It's the data foundation behind every personalized experience and workforce decision, because it captures who someone is, what they know, where they're headed, what their goals are. So And this is actually built from four signal layers, we call it. Um, it is about identity, it's about their skills and behaviors and performance. And actually, it's collecting signals from systems that we use today. So some of this data might be sitting in your Workday or your performance tool or like many other places. So we're intentionally connecting them into a single source of truth. And the skills in this like skills layer is not about just self-reported data. In this case, it captures multiple data points like learning, certifications, assessments, whatever in practice signals that we can kind of gather and we can make it usable. So again, like we realize that most companies know their product better than they know their people. So the idea with this intelligence layer is to kind of flip that so that we can power personalized experiences for individuals and workforce decisions at the organizational level. But to make this more usable, you need just more than has skills, right? So you need to understand the quality of the signal. So and not every actual signal is equal. So we look at three dimensions, like skills presence, like does the skill exist? And the depth or proficiency of skill, and then the confidence. Observed work in production is different than completing a piece of learning. So the point is that we can weigh signals so we don't confuse what is interesting with what deployment ready. So, and TechWolf, like skills intelligence and work intelligence, really enable us to have these weighted signals so that we can really reflect on the evidence. Now, let me show you like how we actually apply this in real world. I know it may sound very kind of high level and hard to kind of bring it to life, but we have three different use cases that we've been actually actively working on. So I'll kind of walk you through like how this is happening in real life. Our first use case is scaling forward deploy engineers. So this is in our AI native world, this is a pretty critical role. Think about them as like special forces. They are full stack engineers embedded with the customer, co-innovating with the customer in real time, and they really own like build the end to ends, and they just don't like actually lead the implementation only. They accelerate activation and adoption of our products. So, and these people are not easy to find. So we're competing with big names in the AI world, right? And then the cost is pretty high to hire these people. So instead of defaulting to external hiring, we actually partner with TechWolf to analyze our skill signals across the internal talent pool and identifying like credible and deployment ready candidates. The value wasn't just finding matches, it was in understanding the gap between adjacent and ready so that we can make smart choices and targeted development investments. So we were able to, again, quickly run through 30,000 people we have and then kind of find the first match of like 15,000 and then drill down from there using multiple signals to get to the kind of smaller pool. The second example shows like why intelligence matters even more when the transformation is actually massive. This is a large scale transformation happening as AI automates like most of the tasks for quality engineering function. Thousands need to to become a full stack, software engineer within the company. So we want to give them that option, right? So and we use actually some of the test data for this. And through that, like with skill and test data, we were able to see where the true alignment existed, where it didn't. And because we have done kind of some early actions that it wasn't really showing great results. And it was kind of really the decisions and the movement was made based on urgency, not really kind of capability matching. So instead, like we built readiness tiers, identified specific skills gaps, and actually we're right now validating with subject matter experts in the business to transition like based on grounded data, not with assumptions. So we're kind of actually in the process of doing this right now. Our third case really connects actually readiness directly to the business outcome. So this is actually happening on our go-to-market organization. So customer excellence group they grew rapidly in the last couple of years. And then the mandate for customer success manager role shifted. Like they now they're it's shifted from like being responsible for customer satisfaction to driving AI platform adoption. So this wasn't just a process change, it's a capability shift. So the skills that they have to have are different. So certifications alone were correlating with the business impact. And then the gap between like sold and adopted basically is a skill gap. So we have to understand the role that skills that the role requires today, and then not what it used to require, so that we can start seeing where the gaps exist, and that we can kind of put together some more focused learning and enablement on what matters. Um, so these are basically, again, three active use cases that we're working on. So and I just want to kind of tell you like what we have learned over the last 3 years. So we've been on this journey for 3 years. We didn't come to this point like overnight, of course. So even with TechWolf, we've been working with them, since last summer. So we had to kind of take a couple of twists and turns, and like there's a lot of trial and error we had to go through and learn a lot of lessons along the way. Um, the kind of couple of like recommendations from our end, like based on the experience. So one is invest in a dedicated team. Invested like you mean it, not just in technology, but a team that owns workforce readiness end to end, who can own skills intelligence, strategy, the use cases, and then the narrative that drives alignment. So I'm actually sitting in a team like that right now. So and I have peers who's owning different parts of this. So and this has to be seen not an HR side project. It's a cross-functional discipline that combines again, data strategy and org development and change management, so that we can really produce outcomes that we can act on as an organization. The second is like, don't boil the ocean. Again, we have done this in ourselves, like when we started this 3 years ago. Um, but again, coming out of it, like I'm just looking back, like don't try to map every role, every skill, every function all at once. Ask the business, like where are the problems? What are the talent questions that they're currently asking? What is their talent strategy? How you can align to that, and lean in to help solve a small number of those with like a few critical roles. As I mentioned, like we're really focused on like three, like it's not like not three, actually three, four critical roles. So like the forward deploy engineers, quality engineers, and also like customer success manager and the customer excellence group. So kind of really taking a focused approach really helps. And that's when you get the business pull. So for us, it was the business pull coming from the like business directly, those use cases. So it really matters because when they pull, there's sponsored like organically, it has urgency, and especially when there's results that you can display, the right people notice. So and it creates like more pull, and you have a momentum that scales. So I think a lot of the companies kind of struggle from this kind of sponsorship leader buy-in, but this is, I think, what I would recommend, like really aligning with the business and really focusing on where they're focusing on from talent perspective. And the last piece is like pick a few horizontal use case and go deep, like workforce planning, mobility, skilling. Not because those are the only things that matter, but also like connecting even a few disconnected pieces builds momentum and belief. So we did that by connecting skills to our ServiceNow University for like learning, even for our internal and external, ecosystem learners. And we connected skills to growth conversations. So it's a part of, the rhythm of the business, and you kind of look at with your manager skills that you have, where do you have gaps, where you have strengths, so that you can, talk about it in a collective way. So it's really kind of driving the momentum through that. So I'll just again close by saying where I started from. Um, Again, this is what we're, focused on as an organization. Like, do you know if your organization is ready for what is next? It may be now like AI transformation, it may be something else, but are you going to be able to answer that question confidently? I think for me, one idea uh, for you to take today is like readiness becomes measurable when skills become signals, and intelligence becomes something leaders can actually act on. So for us, again, this is the focus, and this is kind of how we're going forward. Um, and again, with that, this is kind of all I want to cover. Thank you for your time, but I'm really looking forward to questions and how what's going on in the chat, and I'd be happy to share any answers live.